Was it just an unfortunate incident, or was there actually foul play on Flight 65 from St. Louis to San Diego that day? I had a 35-year career in the airline industry. I was a flight attendant for Trans World Airlines. Anybody remember TWA? Yeah. It was a premier carrier in its day. My job was considered a glamorous profession. Flying to Paris, 3 days in Milan, shopping in London. Just an amazing time to be in the industry. Passengers would come on the flight and they were dressed up, excited to be there, and very well behaved, unlike today. First class had Chateaubriand carts with caviar and ice sculptures. Just, again, a magical time in the industry. A lot of times when people find out what kind of a career I had, they ask me, do you have any good stories or things that happened on your flight? And I have lots of stories in 35 years, but there are a few that rise to the top. One of which I can remember was severe turbulence. Now, most of you have maybe experienced bad turbulence, but severe turbulence are when the flight attendants are thrown to the ceiling, thrown to the ground, thrown to the ceiling, and thrown to the ground again. I actually thought we were going down that day. It was very frightening. And I have also another story about a phenomenon called St. Elmo's fire. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's a kind of a weather phenomena when an aircraft gets struck by lightning. And I am sitting on the front jump seat, and all of a sudden at my feet, there is this boom, and electrical current comes in. It almost looks like a ball of fire, literally. And it rolls down the aisle and goes out the back because the plane's not grounded. Check it out. I also flew with plenty of celebrities and movie stars, some of which were very well behaved. Will Ferrell, he is a hoot. Dustin Hoffman, boy. Diana Ross, I got her autograph. She's an angel. And then there were some that were not very well behaved. I can think of one in particular that was actually banned from TWA, and I believe American too. Lucille Ball. TWA, no love a Lucy. Now we start my story today in St. Louis. I am working the aisle position. My husband, who is a flight attendant also, met on a flight to Denver, married 43 years. And as I approach our first pre-board, it's a woman in an aisle chair. And what that means is this woman needs complete assistance. She is strapped. She needs full help. And as I approach her coming on, a chill goes up my spine. This woman is emaciated. She was skeletal. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm looking at a scary movie. And traveling with her was her daughter, who was probably mid-60s. I escort them to the row, I get them situated, and I ask the daughter, who's sitting at the window, mom's in the middle, is there anything I can get you before we take off? And the daughter proceeds to say, oh yes, my mom would love a black cup of coffee and maybe a little sandwich or something to eat. She hasn't eaten in weeks. Weeks? Red flags start going. Absolutely. I go back, I come back and give that to them. And as I'm setting it down, she says, oh, and by the way, would you mind asking your first class passengers when they come on board? If somebody up there lives in La Jolla, they're all rich up there, we need a ride to Scripps Hospital. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, first of all, that's not our protocol. I can't do that. I'm sorry, ma'am. Once we get on the ground in San Diego, I will be happy to make sure the ground crew can assist you to where you need to go. So now we take off, and about halfway through the flight, I come through and I'm checking my passengers. And as I approach the row where they're at, the elderly woman raises her hand and lets out this curdling gasp, almost to say, help me. And I came over immediately and said, is your mom okay? And the daughter grabbed her arm, pulled it down, and said, oh yes, she's just really excited. My brother lives in San Diego, and we're gonna surprise him. Okay, more red flags. So now we are about maybe 10, 15 minutes from landing. We are closing up the cabin, doing what we do before landing, and the gal that was sitting on the aisle, a younger gal, comes back to the galley quickly, with just quite a concerned look on her face. And she says, the woman next to me was moving normally for most of the flight, and a little while back, she just stopped moving and fell into me. What? Thank you. I raced to the row, and as I look, the daughter is completely disconnected. She's gazing out the window, and mom is like this. Her hand is also blue. Now, she has a bracelet on, but I don't know. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. It took me 3 times to get this woman's attention. And then when she turns to me, she looks almost like, what? And I said, is your mom okay? Her hand looks a little blue. And I said, is that bracelet cutting off her hand? Circulation? She took the bracelet, snapped it a couple times, and said, oh no, it's elastic. She is fine. Now at this point, I have made physical contact with this elderly woman, and I'm thinking to myself, she is not fine. She is stone cold, and I think she's dead. I race to the cockpit, tell him, we have an emergency in back, call paramedics. So the captain gets on the horn, calls paramedics, and then he makes a full cabin announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, remain in your seats when we get to San Diego. We have paramedics coming on board to assist one of our passengers. Now, mind you, at this point, if you've ever been on a flight where that's called, everybody is, what's going on? Who is it? Who is it? We land, we stop, two paramedics come running on. I come right up to meet them, and they clear the road. They move the daughter out, they move the gal on the aisle out, and they lay the mother down. And the first paramedic assesses her, and she says, this woman is dead, and rigor mortis has set in. The second paramedic spins to me and says, are you the lead flight attendant on this? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she goes, why wasn't CPR administered? Don't you do that? Weren't you trained to do that? And at this point, I'm starting to get really flustered, and I said, I was given no indication at any time that there was something really wrong until literally minutes before we landed. And I'm thinking to myself also, if I would have done CPR on this woman, I would have crushed her chest. And at that point, the other paramedics said, okay, let's calm it down. They get the passengers off. Now, when someone dies on a flight, it's a really big to-do. It is a hot mess. There are paperwork to do. They actually question individually each one of the crew members and anybody involved. So they took the crew and the daughter off the flight, put us in a van on the tarmac, waiting to be interviewed. Now at this point, the daughter is sitting across from me in the van. And she looks at me and she says, I might still want to take my mom to Scripps Hospital. Maybe they have something there that could bring her back to life. Would you want your mom to come back to life in that body? I think she's better off where she is. And she paused for a moment and said, you're right. I just retired from being a teacher, and I think your job looks really exciting. Do you think they'd hire someone my age? Do you like your job? Yes. Do they stay in really nice hotels, and do they have swimming pools? And I'm thinking, oh, dear God, just get me out of here. And it was all I could do to answer the questions as quickly as possible and get to my husband. And when I did, I said, today, oh my gosh, do you believe this? Do you think that maybe the mom, put something in the lady's coffee or something? And my husband I don't know. And we never actually found out what happened. I don't even know if they did an autopsy. But what did come out of that flight that day is my husband and I had had a few other medical emergencies on our flights prior to this death. And the San Diego flight attendants used to say, you don't want to fly with the Coopmans. People die on their flight.